but shock a lot of people that still do not realize what communists are capable to do. When we were following all the numbers and the results and official website of the Supreme Court, we saw something stopped being kind of being frozen from the 66.66%. And that moment.
You're talking about the total number of ballots counted? Where does that number come from?
Yeah.
So they stopped it at 6.6. They stopped the counting.
Yeah.
Oh,
so
my
they
gosh.
stopped. That got frozen, and then Lula started to have more votes than Bolsonaro, and not just few votes, 7 million votes. But the problem is, if you see the streets, all the videos, it's viral on the internet, you can see that clearly Lula couldn't bring anyone to the street for the rallies, for anything. And when you see Bolsonaro, even place that Bolsonaro wasn't able to go, was way more packed, and the crowd was bigger.
So it's a lot like what we saw in America. Trump, 20, 30,000 people every rally. Biden, 300 max. We saw virtually the same thing with Bolsonaro and Lula.
Welcome to the Convo Couch, everybody. Pastor Jardula is here. I have some guests for you guys today. I want to make sure that you can hear me loud and clear. Thank you, everybody who's joining us. Fiorella is here, and we have a guest. We brought him right in, Danny Shaw. How you doing today, Danny?
Good to see everybody. Important topics here to discuss and break down.
Yep. So let me get you on the big screen because we have a lot of things to discuss. We saw that video right over there. He said right out of the gate that there was a flipping almost of votes where Bolsonaro had a huge lead, and try to compare it with what was going on in 2020 where Trump had a huge lead and then eventually lost. The only problem is, he says ballots. There are no ballots in the Brazil election. I think we should mention that right off the top. But the thing he said that was just so crazy, and I want you to dive right into this, Danny, is the fact that he said that Bolsonaro had these huge events and Lula couldn't have hardly anybody at his events. Why don't we talk about the September 7th event that you went to, in which they keep showing pictures of, and they keep on saying that Bolsonaro had this huge event. What was that day, and what was really going on?
September 7th is the July 4th of the Brazilian people. It was the bicentennial this year of their independence. I would put independence in quotation marks, because who can truly make an argument that diplomatically, economically, and beyond, Brazil is a truly independent country? And that's almost regardless of whether Bolsonaro or Lula wins, though certainly Lula is a path back towards some sense of self-determination. So what Bolsonaro was able to do with his base, and he certainly does have a base, reminds me of that quote by the African Cape Verdean revolutionary Amilcar Cabral: count no easy victories, tell the people no lies. There were tens of thousands in the streets of Brasilia, of Rio de Janeiro, two of Bolsonaro's base cities. But Lula, not just on September 7th, but in the build-up to this election, the PT, Lula, Fernando Haddad, they brought how many tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of people into the streets of the Northeast, of Sao Paulo, of Curitiba in the South. So when you listen to InfoWars and Alex Jones, I don't hear any evidence-based sharing. It's just based on an ideological viewpoint, and they've already decided what their conclusions are.
Yeah. Fiorella, you got anything for that?
Yeah, I mean, obviously there are a lot of Bolsonaro supporters in those areas that you mentioned. We've seen them as well. There was also, of course, the Brazilian, the hijacking of the Brazilian flag and stuff. But you ran into some of these patriots as well. What was your experience with them, and why do you think that there was so much support from the right in the United States, with Steve Bannon even making his way there in Brazil?
Yeah, I was there in Copacabana on September 7th, and what Bolsonaro was able to do was hijack this Independence Day and merge it into his rally. So it was a sea of yellow and green in Copacabana. Global estimated 60,000 to 65,000 actual supporters. It was definitely, significant numbers out there. Because I'm from New York and I speak English and they didn't recognize me, my profile in Brazil was low enough. They actually invited me up onto some of the Bolsonarista floats. I didn't speak any Portuguese. I just led on like I was a everyday tourist or American academic. And I bumped into the Jason Millers and these other senior Trump strategists. And yes, Steve Bannon was down there as well at the beginning of September. So it's very telling that Steve Bannon would say this is the most important election on earth, or the second most important election. Now, in terms of the hijacking of the Brazilian flag, very similar to here in the United States, where Trumpism has done the very same. So that was an interesting conversation with the Brazilian people in terms of redeeming that flag and recapturing it for everyday people.
So a lot of people will say in the States that Bolsonaro will get a lot of support because of his stances on the vaccine. But obviously, when we go down there, there's not a lot of people who are as concerned about the vaccine as they are concerned about getting food in their refrigerator, getting milk on their table, getting a house over their head. Why do people in Brazil, and who are they? Why do they support Lula? Because, InfoWars and a lot of other networks are trying to make it out like Lula is this criminal, even though he was acquitted of all charges. They're trying to also make it seem like he doesn't have anybody at their rallies and events. And you just talked about how they had so many people in the streets. But why exactly do the people in Brazil, who are they that support Lula?
Yeah, and if anyone has any doubts about the massive PT rallies, not just now, but from 2011, when the InfoWars is the perfect name for Alex Jones' show, because it is an informational war, and it's been a communicational war and a media war against Lula. Look where Lula comes from. Lula represents the real Brazil, the Brazil of the 95% or 99%, the campesinos, the everyday workers. He himself was a factory worker. When you hear his speeches, he's always talking about how much he struggled with his 7 siblings and his single mother, and his father wasn't there present. So he has this emotional connection with everyday Brazilians versus Bolsonaro's very dry, militaristic, I think arrogant, presumptuous style. Lula speaks the language of everyday people. Go on Calçachun News. You can go on my Twitter. You can scroll back to the early days of September to see these massive rallies, but no one's, the right-wing media, the pro-imperialist media, they're not going to cover this because they have but one viewpoint, regardless of what's playing out every day. In terms of the economic warfare on the Brazilian people, all Lula is saying, and I don't know why this is so radical, it's the same thing Jean-Bertrand Aristide was saying in Haiti. If our people can't eat, then we can't think consciously. So full bellies mean full social consciousness. And that's the program that Lula represents. To call that communist is ridiculous. At the same time, how many communists in history have said the people have a right to eat 3 times a day?
Yeah. So, Fee, can I follow up on it real quick? I just wanted to, because we did kind of explain why Americans and people in the West like Bolsonaro. We just, we know those reasons, Bannon, the whole 9 yards. But he did get 55 million votes, or was it close to 53 million votes, Bolsonaro? Why in the people in Brazil, why are there some people voting him when there's such civil unrest? I mean, people are in the streets. Homeless is just craziness. We all got, I'm 2 of the 3 people on this show right here got the phone stolen. I mean, why are people still supporting Bolsonaro? Did you lose me?
That's for Fiorella or for me?
No, for you, Danny. Yeah.
I was waiting for Fiorella to come with that knockout punch. My bad.
My bad.
This informational war on Lula, as though he's the most corrupt individual in history. This is hatred of any worker. Lula talks a lot about for the first time, the true rulers of Brazilian destiny who thought they were so impenetrable and invincible. They saw indigenous people and black people go to a university, and poor people could actually take a plane ticket to Recife or Fortaleza in the north, and poor people could go on vacation for the first time after 2003. So for the first time, there were these socio-economic benefits for everyday Brazilian people. And I think that's what the military brass and the wealthy congressmen who come from the upper echelons of Brazilian society, that's why they can't forgive the PT. The base of the PT is UCUT, the largest trade union in the history of Latin America, the 5th largest trade union in all of the world, the CUT. And you have the MST, 1.6 million members of the landless farmers workers movement. Landless workers movement would be the translation. So you're talking about these massive social movements which have created this alliance. They've had to also be with this centrist vice presidential candidate, Geraldo Alckmin. So Lula's had to make so many concessions. So even if Lula was this radical, within the context of this campaign and the lawfare campaign against the PT and the Brazilian left, Lula's more to the center than ever. So to keep calling him this rhetoric of the InfoWars, to call him a communist, it's absolute malarkey.
Pam?
Yeah. And so, you know, we were all there. We all spoke to people in the MST. We have talked to several people that were on the ground. The narrative is different. There's a lot of people here in the United States on the left pushing this idea that Lula is just like Biden, that Lula supporters are all just this monolithic group of liberals, when in reality, as you mentioned, Lula is reaching out towards different sectors. You have everybody from a communist to a liberal at times supporting Lula. Why do you think so many people that were once the, you know, the petty bourgeois, that were once, you know, these small business owners, that were once on the other end of the spectrum, went and decided to support Lula this time around?
I think COVID was one issue that played out. More than half a million Brazilians died, including a close aunt figure of mine. I've been studying Brazilian Portuguese since 2003. I have ethnographic training. I've lived in, when I talk about these different communities in Rio de Janeiro and in the Northeast, I've spent considerable time there. I've lived there. And Bolsonaro, you know, he's very similar to a very divisive, polarizing Trump figure. He comes out of the military. He comes from a powerful family background. His 4 children have powerful positions. It's an extremely polarized society. But a good chunk of the media, including the liberal media that's now, well, the Estado de Sao Paulo, one of the leading newspapers in Sao Paulo, they came out with an editorial on October 3rd, as we were still recovering from being robbed the night before. And they said that they wouldn't support either of these candidates. So the ruling class has been split in a sense and has, I think, vilified both candidates. But it's a very polarizing situation. I mean, a Bolsonaro victory would mean more social neglect. How many businesses have shut down, small businesses in Brazil? There's a social upheaval. When you walk through downtown Sao Paulo, when you walk through downtown Rio, the homelessness, the crack epidemic. Now, a lot of that's pushed out of the favelas because the favelas have their own laws. You get caught any type of petty theft in the favelas, you're going to be uma micro-onda. That means they put a tire on you with gasoline, they light you on fire. I've known people who've gone through that type of thing. Obviously, they're not with us anymore. So they say Cracolândia, or the essence of the crack epidemic in Sao Paulo, it's been spread out because the police came and Bolsonaro's allied to the police state apparatus, and all these militias, these militias who are also connected to the evangelical church, the base of Bolsonaro's vote. And they've cracked down on many of these addicts, traumatized families who've been pushed into a homelessness situation in the center of Sao Paulo and Rio, which creates this horrific crime epidemic, which has resulted in more and more people blaming Bolsonaro. And it's these very simple bread and butter issues that have pushed them further to the left into Lula's camp.
Danny, you talked to a lot of people in labor and labor movements in Brazil and whatnot. Fiorella said something amazing the other day. I think I haven't stopped using it. And, you know, Bolsonaro was looked upon as the West, as this guy who's taking on the WHO and telling them to go scratch, and he's going to take on power, and he's fighting against the globalists. However, the argument has been, and from the people we've talked to from the MST, have said that Bolsonaro has let all these multinational corporations come in and steal agriculture. If you're going to stand up for the farmer in the Netherlands, then you can't condone, you can't allow what what he's doing in Brazil to go unchecked. Can you give a little bit more context to that, as far as these big corporations coming in and taking all away the small farmer and the indigenous owner?
Yeah, I think one could make an empirical argument that Brazil is arguably one of, or the richest country on earth. The lungs of South America, of the hemisphere, flow through the Amazon. We're talking about 1/3 of all South American land and resources. We're talking about 210 million people, 115 million of whom have African roots, the largest African population outside of Nigeria. So we're talking about an incredible economic powerhouse, right up there with Russia and China and some of the other largest economies on earth. I think Brazil's GDP is over $2 trillion. It's the 10th largest economy in the world. So there's a lot at stake here. Bolsonaro represents Washington and Miami and Wall Street's man in Brasilia. He's a con man. He's someone that they've pivoted towards because he's opened up the veins of Brazil, to cite a book that we should all study, Eduardo Galeano's The Open Veins of Latin America, 5 Centuries of the Pillage of a Continent. So it's not hyperbole to say that Brazil, like the Congo and like these other huge pieces of the international chessboard, is vitally important to U.S. capital and Dutch capital and French capital. And a Lula victory means that they're going to have all types of new barriers. Not that Lula's not going to play ball. Lula is nowhere close to the Venezuelan leadership or the Cuban leadership in terms of how radically anti-imperialist they are. But certainly Lula represents an impediment to their snatching and pillaging the open veins of Brazil.
Bam.
Well, I guess my last question on this whole issue to you, Danny, is why do you think Lula will win on the next round? Do you think that Lula will actually surpass? Because a lot of people saw this as a loss for the PT, for Lula's party, because they expected him to take it on the first round. A lot of us that have been following this closely did not expect him to take it on the first round. But of course, still Bolsonaro's numbers were greater than some would have liked, especially obviously on Lula's end. What do you think is going to be necessary to take Lula over the top, and do you think he will take it?
We were at different watching parties on Sunday evening. It seems like months ago, but it was just this very week, and it was like watching an incredible Game 7 of the NBA Finals, and you were rooting, whether you were rooting for the Celtics or the Warriors. It was like, can Lula do it? 47%, but 85% of the vote has been counted. He's at 48.5%, but 98% of the vote is counted, and he was this close. What needs to happen in the upcoming days is o Lula tem que fechar com o MPB. Lula has to strike agreements with the more centrist parties, with these two different candidates who got between 4 to 8% of the vote. I mean, Lula won by over 6.5 million votes. It's certainly not a landslide, but it's a comfortable victory. Of course, the Alex Joneses and the Foxes would immediately say that this election was legitimate if their man had come out on top. But because their man lost, suddenly all evidence goes to the side, and it's completely ideology over any empirical evidence. I think Lula will win on October 30th because of this big alliance. The PT has looked to the left. They have the different revolutionary organizations, some of which we've mentioned. We haven't mentioned the PCdoB. I mean, the Brazilian Communist Party has like hundreds of thousands of members. We don't have anything like that here in the United States. We did in the 1930s at the height of the Great Depression with the CPUSA, but it's very different today. I think Bolsonaro's in a lot of trouble. I think these candidates who were the third and fourth place candidates will get behind Lula. I don't think it'll be an easy victory on October 30th, but I think the PT will be back in power. And then the real battle begins because the Bolsonaristas won how many governorships, how many seats in Congress. They control a lot of the media, and the media that is not extreme right is not on the side of the PT. So global, with their new woke capitalism, kind of the CNN, MSNBC merged together of Brazil, is still going to be taking on Lula and the PT, trying to make sure that they don't form this alliance with the Bolivarian countries. Lula's talked about the Sur, a South American currency that could unite South America. I mean, how amazing would that be? Because the US dollar right now is at 5.3 reais, which is killing the Brazilians, to see their currency devalued every day. And the purchasing power of most Brazilians, I'll just end with this before throwing it back to y'all, but so many of my close people from the favelas, the most oppressed communities, had to come out and actually campaign because they would be paid the equivalent of $60 for every 15 days. And they would have to campaign for Bolsonaro or Bolsonarista candidates to try to put food on the table. And if they were found out to be from the PT, they would be censored and then they wouldn't be paid. Again, evidence of how polarized Brazil is.
Danny, thank you so much for that insight. And I just want to say, you know, we break down the technical part of it. This was not a rigged election. If there's any place vulnerable in this election, it could be within the machines. But from everything we saw from the opening to the close, there's a reason why Bolsonaro's reports were reported early. He was in the more affluent areas, so those numbers were going to be reported first. The areas that were a little bit more poor and impoverished, they had a little bit more time, a longer time to get their process done. But there's no such thing as a ballot in Brazil, so that's a lie right off the bat. And that's why we wanted to bring Danny in today to kind of dispel this myth of what was going on as far as trying to make this parallel that, you know, just like Trump, Bolsonaro was this huge figure who filled up all these rallies in the streets and everything, and Lula was like Biden. Not at all. Lula is very much like Bernie Sanders. Like I said, he is a labor guy coming from labor. Obviously, Lula's got a little bit more skin in the game and had 2 terms as a president. But the lie that Lula can't get people in the streets and the lie that Lula is not the favorite had to be dispelled. And that's why we wanted to bring Danny on to talk about, to dispel that method. But if you want to know more about the math, Feminized, last show we talked about it. I was on a show with Burmis that's coming out. We have a lot of the math to show you with the election system that this was not rigged. And I will say the same thing to the Bolsonaro supporter that I said to the Colombia supporter after they made it to the second round. Petro was suspected to wrap it up. A lot of people from Colombia were depressed and upset. He's not getting to the second round. He's now vulnerable. Hey, you got 3 weeks to go out and win an election. Go out and win an election. Stop bitching and crying about the system, especially Bolsonaro people who won on that system, and he won big before. And nothing was changed. So we don't want to hear it. You want to win, go to the streets and win and go prove it. But don't try to make this myth that Lula is something small like a Biden. He's huge, and people are starving in Brazil, and that's why they're supporting him in Brazil. Danny.
And we met with the TSE. You know, we met with the TSE. We met with the Superior Electoral Tribunal. We asked every question. You all's questions were extremely engaging and critical. I mean, we had them like up against the ropes. So it's funny, this system was, you know, well functioning when Bolsonaro won in 2018 by 10% over Fernando Haddad, at a moment where the lawfare campaign, similar to what they did to Rafael Correa in Ecuador, and that was the campaign against Dilma Rousseff and Lula in Brazil. And it came from these quote unquote liberal outlets as much as the right wing. But be careful, you know, they reaped this storm that was Bolsonarismo. And now a lot of the liberal ruling class media has turned on Bolsonaro. And of course, that's pivotal in terms of Lula coming back into power.
Yeah. And I just want to end real quick with,
I just wanted to get you in the big screen. Sorry about that.
Oh, and I just want to end real quick with the fact that not only were we there, we actually watched the entire process. We actually saw how clean it was in terms of, obviously we talk about paper ballots. We like paper ballots, But with the tally sheets, you could know right away who was the winner in the particular room in the polling center. And as Pasta said, the wealthier neighborhood that we were in, that the polling center we went to, was completely different than the one we went to near the favelas and near the more working class areas of Brazil. And so when people say that this election wasn't fair, I will be the first one to call out an election when it's not fair. But the fact is, this system, the same election system, has been in place for 10 years. And there were no complaints previously, as Danny mentioned. And now all of a sudden, there's some sort of attempt to invalidate this election. And, when we were in Nicaragua, we were telling people this election was fair and the West was trying to invalidate it. And I think, what we're seeing here is that the United States is going to play their cards with Lula this time around. They're going to see what he does. And again, and if he takes this, of course, and I think he will, and they're watching him, right? This is going to be a kind of position where somebody like Petro's in, somebody like Castillo and Lula, they're basically watching to see, they're trying to work with Latin America, but they also have to be careful about the United States, because all of these countries have had a close relationship with the United States and have had neoliberal governments where people have had a hard time accepting communism as a whole. And so or any sort of leftist movement. And make no mistake that Lula is a progressive. He is not anything, super left at all. And I think, whatever Brazil decides, if Brazil decides this guy is going to help them, will be. And that's what should be respected at the end of the day, the sovereignty of Brazilians.
Danny, you want to add anything on that? Because I just want to say one last thing too about this, unless you got something to say.
Yeah, I think some Brazilians, just like here in the Bronx and across the U.S., they feel so disenfranchised. There's so much generational and historical trauma that plays out, whether it's through petty theft or crack addiction, and they don't feel invested in the system. And how do these organizations, these mass organizations, galvanize them and mobilize them to vote? That's been certainly a challenge in some areas of the country. Bolsonaro has that base in the South, and the votes in the South. The South of Brazil is historically settled by Italian, German, Portuguese, and Polish settlers and immigrants from the time of World War I and on. The Northeast is the most historically exploited area of Brazil, and those votes came in last. So this whole Alex Jones 66.66%, it couldn't have been 66.7, right? So not only are they communists, but they're also demonic, apparently. Nothing but
demonic communist. That's the worst.
That's the term we've been looking for all these years. So that's nothing but rhetoric. And it doesn't add up with those of us who've lived in Brazil. Shout out to Brazil Wire, Calçuchon News, and you all who for so many years now, Brazil Wire in particular, for I don't know how many years and decades, have been bringing this expertise to a English-speaking audience on Brazil.
Yeah, you know what? Thank you so much. And we come to provide the math about elections because we believe the quickest way to and the fairest way to national sovereignty is with free, fair, and transparent elections. That's the way that people get the power back. And correct me if I'm wrong, because a lot of people, because I've been saying that what I discovered from being on the ground over there is when we talk to these Uber drivers, these cab drivers, they like Bolsonaro, right? And I remember that interview with Glenn Greenwald and Lula when Lula said, like, yeah, when all these indigenous poor people eventually got to the airport where they could take a vacation, they were looked upon by the working class or the owner classes disgusting. And, oh, my God, how can you do this? And I do see this split between the peasants and the poor people and the working class there for some reason. It seems like that old traditional divide and conquer. But do you see that? And when I say that Lula's not a communist, but maybe he's a compromise between the communist and the capitalist, because he does divert some money and funds to the poorest of the poor. Go ahead, Danny.
Yeah, I think we have to remember that, like us here in the United States, we weren't born and raised into a socialist society. Ernesto Che Guevara talked about converting all of Cuban society into a gigantic school of socialism and love and collectivism. Well, it's the antithesis here in the United States, and in Brazil, it's a gigantic school of capitalism, which pits us against one another. It's a racialized capitalism. It's Black Brazilians, indigenous Brazilians. It's the favelados who suffer the most. So that everyday Uber driver doesn't have years and years studying the Convo Couch or whatever alternative networks. They've been schooled by Global. That's one of the richest families in all of Brazil, the Marinho family out of Rio de Janeiro. And Global is truly, I think, dangerous. They control the entire cultural complex there. It's almost like merging CNN, MSNBC, and ABC together into one corporation. So people have been so thoroughly conditioned that we have to unpack how many decades and centuries of this colonial and neo-colonial indoctrination to understand the unsparing hatred that so many people feel towards a Lula who is really in the enemy's arena. How dare a worker who lost one of his fingers in a factory in Sao Bernardo in the south of Sao Paulo in the ABC factory district, how dare he stand up and speak truth to power on all of these powerful media monopolies platforms in the presidential debates. Lula is truly comes from o coração do povo, from the heart of the Brazilian people, and that's what they can't forgive.
Yeah, well, we got a lot of work to do. I got to tell you that much. But what we're not going to do is allow InfoWars or any of those people to tell these lies. And shame on the left establishment media for being so silent and not reporting the truth too as well. They're just as guilty for their silence, and we ain't going to let it slide. In Haiti, okay, man, oh man. The next question is, what the F is going on in Haiti? You can see this is massive protest over here in the streets against the U.S.-backed regime in the Tigwav. If I said that wrong, please correct me. Haiti this morning. This marks 7 weeks of recent cycle of nonstop protest against the foreign interference. The IMF imposed austerity and calls for a government of national unity to organize for free and fair elections. And when you start hearing about the IMF and any other type of global entity organizing for free and fair elections, you get scared very quickly. Danny, tell us what the hell is going on in Haiti.
Yeah, first off, Napsali to Camarade Haitian, thank you to the Haitian people, everything they've taught me. I'm actually en route to the Dominican Republic, and not sure if I'll be in Haiti this time, but I did reporting from Haiti last year. Been a student of the Haitian people and Haitian Creole since 1998, when I first had the opportunity to go to this amazing, beautiful, rich country. And I was involved with a lot of workshops and conferences in Brazil, and many Brazilian students and professors would ask, how can we get Haitian leadership to come here, and what can we learn from them? And I think that's an amazing way to frame this moment. What can we learn from the Haitian people, a people who've been in revolt now for how many centuries, since they first successfully dethroned French colonialism in 1804. And that's the legacy that the West, that imperialism, can never accept. This is the third iteration of a complete rebellion against the PHTK, the bald-headed Haitian party. First, it was Michel Martelly, who was very close to the Hillary Clinton and the Clinton Foundation. And then there was Jovenel Moïse, who was assassinated on July 6th last year. I was actually, coincidentally, completely on the last plane out of OCAP Haitian when Jovenel was assassinated. And now you have Ariel Henry. This is the third unelected or elected under very shady circumstances. But in the case of Ariel Henry, he's completely unelected. There's been no vote in Haiti. The mandate of Jovenel Moïse, if it ever existed in any type of democratic sense, which it didn't, this was a petty tyrant, handpicked, a banana salesman and exporter. This was someone who had no political capital or social capital to be the president of Haiti. He was a puppet. That means he was a sellout or a Uncle Tom in U.S. African-American vernacular. And that's why there's this massive rebellion. It's been an ongoing rebellion, and the repression is fierce. So I hope that everyone can continue to follow different. I mean, 99% of Haitians aren't on Twitter, but I guess that's our role here in solidarity as anti-imperialists. How can we magnify these revolutionary platforms from the heart of the Haitian people?
Pam?
No. Yeah, no, I've seen what's going on, and the mass protests that have been happening, and of course, like as you mentioned, Haiti has been centuries old of protesting in ways that we haven't seen. Um, why do you think that? What do you see in the assassination, right, of the latest president, and what do you think is the opportunity now for the Haitian revolutionaries in the aftermath of this whole situation?
Well, the Organization of American States met last night, and Magro, who's mired in scandal right now and new fresh accusations, if anyone wants to read the headlines, El Magro and the OAS, who have functioned as a mouthpiece of Washington and puppet fake presidents since 1948, they're announcing yet again another potential invasion and occupation of Haiti. Meanwhile, Luis Abinader, the petty you could put president in quotation marks of the Dominican Republic, is building this Trumpian-like wall on the border with Haiti. I think this begs a lot of study to understand Haitian history and Dominican history and what 1822 to 1844 meant when the Haitians united the island. If you call it Hispaniola, Little Spain, I mean, that's a very mocking, disparaging way to talk about a people who, of course, in one case do have some French roots and in the other case do have Spanish roots, but these are people who came together through the abduction of how many millions of enslaved people in the indigenous roots. So to call it Little Spain, of course, is a very racist, disparaging term, but there's so much study that needs to be done. But where we can start, Fiorella, is by saying that Haiti's never been poor. Haiti's always been oppressed and exploited. It's not the poorest country, CNN. It's the most misunderstood, and it's the most exploited country. Last week, you had all these different factories joining this generalized rebellion. And how did the police forces respond? The Haitian National Police responded with live ammunition, killing many of the workers in Wannet in Okap Haitien. And of course, ABC and Fox, they're never going to talk about this. They have their talking points on Haiti that they've been repeating. The United States has twice kidnapped Jean-Bertrand Aristide in 1991 and in 2004 because Aristide represented, like Lula, a shred of decency, civility, dignity, and self-determination for the Haitian people. And really, that's the essence of imperialism. Imperialism can't accept a massive piece of the global chessboard like Brazil and their autonomy, and a smaller piece like Haiti, a country of 11 million people, half the population of greater Sao Paulo, really a small country in the big scheme of things. But the US, the State Department, the CIA, all the intelligence services, the Pentagon, and this $875 billion budget, they're on overdrive right now, 25 hours a day, 8 days a week, with their analysts earning $300,000 per year or much more. You know, we could only wish that we could receive anything in return for anti-imperialist work. It's laughable what we're up against. But as the MSAT teaches us, humility will bring you far in life. So it's important to get these talking points out there about Haiti because it's nowhere to be found. Liberal media, right-wing media, you're not going to hear this.
So what's going to happen if, let's say, in a beautiful world that we would just keep our hands off and we would let the natural evolution of Haiti take place? What do you think would be in store for Haiti? Because a lot of people say, oh no, it's just been rooted so much in intervention in different empires, resource extraction. There's no infrastructure there. What would come of Haiti if we would just, for once in our lives, just had this handoff approach?
Yeah, Haiti would be freed from how many centuries of trauma, of white supremacy? And it's so simple. Pasta masa, that was your nickname over there in Brazil. Masa, pasta, starch translated to Portuguese. That's all the Haitians want. The Haitians want to be left alone. It's so simple. MSNBC, we don't need your crocodile tears. The Haitian people ask for the troika of evil, the OAS, the UN, and the US government. Just leave us alone. French government, Canadian government, just leave us alone. Let us develop. Let us have our own self-determining future, similar to what the Black Panther Party said about the Black communities from Oakland to here in Harlem. And that's what they can never allow, because if Haiti continues to be that shining star of resistance and self-determination that it's been for how many centuries, that's going to send a message to the everyday Dominican people that they can overthrow their rulers and their owners and their foreign masters. And if the Dominicans catch that revolutionary bug, what will the Puerto Ricans think? And they don't want another Cuba in the Caribbean. That's why they invaded in 1965, April 28th, 42,000 U.S. Marines invaded the country that I'm en route to, the Dominican Republic, because they were afraid of another example, another Cuba, another shining star of self-determination. So that's why there's been this unfettered informational war, military war, and ongoing invasions. Haiti, if they invade again, it'll be the 5th time in the last century.
Fam?
That's all the questions I have for Danny.
Yeah.
Fam. I mean,
well, I do have one statement to make, because this is something that was going on. We saw at the border this whole thing where a bunch of Haitian refugees went up through the border, and the squad went on TV and they were so mad. And, oh my God, how can you whip these people? And these border agents got to go. And then guess what happened? They all let them get in a plane and deported them back to Haiti. So for all you people out there who always talk about migration and legal immigration, so many Haitian people coming over, that's what would happen if we left them alone. They wouldn't have to come here, because their land, their home wouldn't be exploited. It wouldn't be chaos, and they wouldn't end up on our front door if we just simply let them be. Danny Shaw, tell everybody where we can find you, what you're doing, when Masa Pasa, Fiorella, and Danny Shaw are going to break bread again. Let everybody know.
Yeah, 100%. I first met Johnny and Fiorella in Nicaragua, covering another country that's been completely demonized. In Spanish, they say satanizado, satanized. Doesn't quite translate, but it's powerful. So shout out to the Convo Couch for having these important, complex conversations, for getting on the ground. Let's continue to support these colleagues. I'm at Danny Shaw CUNY, as in City University of New York, on Twitter, on IG. Despite all the censorship and the pro-imperialist algorithms, you know, we keep pushing on. Sure enough, they've called me many times some type of agent of this or that government. I mean, they couldn't be a greater compliment than what they've done to Fiorella, because that means her work is getting out there in the Convo Couch. But they've said the same thing, that any of us who take this stance, we must be agents of Nicolás Maduro and el Chavismo, Castrismo. They make up all these words and terms to try to debunk us, so that they can continue with their media monopolies. Because once you control people's minds, in the words of Stephen Biko, when you control the minds of the oppressed, then that's the most powerful weapon in the hands of the oppressor.
D. Shaw, everybody. You saw him here. You'll see him again. Love you, Danny.
Thank you, Danny.
Peace. Thank you. Peace.
See you soon. Amazing work, my man, Danny Shaw. Fam, we got a lot of stuff to go over today. We got a big show, but that's a great way to start it right out of the gate. I do apologize for the echo in the very beginning. Halfway through the Alex Jones video, I did take it off, but I was able to get across the fact that they keep on using this Fugazi stance, that Bolsonaro had all these people in the streets, that he was even bigger and better than Trump. When he used the independence celebration with all these people, Copacabana and everything, getting out there and disguising it, and then hijacking the green and yellow colors. But we know what's what. Lula's had massive rallies, massive people going, and we understand why people are voting for Lula. And I just wanted to provide some perspective for the people out there who are supporting Bolsonaro for the reasons they think, are legit. But they're not the only reasons. When you go down to Brazil, fam, you see a different story, do you not?
Yeah, and again, I have to address this with some people in the chat, because it's really hard when I understand your worries, like, if Petro is meeting with Soros' son, or if this person is meeting with that person. First of all, people meet with people because these are presidents, diplomats. They're going to meet with people we don't like. That happens all the time. You will not be able to name a single politician that refused to meet with anybody that was problematic, because they're a politician. They have to do it. It comes with a freaking territory. So this idyllic version of these people never meeting with somebody that they don't like is ridiculous. Vladimir Putin has met with so many people that he doesn't like. So this idea, you have to understand, like, when you're talking about politics in the way the West, from a Western Northern perspective, you're looking at a lot of the times at the greater picture of globalism and world hegemony, right? You're worried about Soros, you're worried about all this stuff, and that is important. We need to be watching that. as to how these relationships are made. However, when it comes to people in power, they're going to meet with these people and they're going to talk to them. Very few people are in a position of power to not talk to these people. And the ones that are have been doing it for a long time. We're talking about the, red revolutionary states like Cuba, like Venezuela and Nicaragua that say Yankee go home, and they're like, we're going to kick the OAS out. We don't want anything to do with you. These countries are in a position where they have been able to develop their populations with the education to understand their history. Because if you as a population don't know your history, you are vulnerable to color revolutions and coups like what we're seeing here in an attempt with Iran, which we haven't even had a chance to cover because we can't cover everything, even though I want to have someone on for Iran. But you guys know what's going on here with Iran is that the United States, the West, is attempting yet another color revolution, saying they care about the Iranian women. And it's all bullshit. It's all being pushed by the CIA. Now, if that is the case, and you know how powerful these entities are, if you are a country in Latin America that is finally getting to put in somebody that is a sovereign, is likely to get you some sort of sovereignty, some sort of wins for the working class, it's not going to be easy. It doesn't happen overnight. It's literally one of the hardest things to do. If you're a country like Colombia that has literally been a NATO partner to the United States, there would never be a Castro coming in out of nowhere in a country like Colombia that has been largely propagandized against any sort of revolutionary movement. And a country like Colombia that has been riddled by neoliberalism, by civil war. And so when you mention just these things, what about this person talking about to this person and that? And I don't think Lula is this and that. It's like we said from the start, Lula and his supporters told us, Lula isn't a revolutionary. He is not this anti-imperialist, whatever. He is not, any of these people. He is simply a guy that's a worker, a union guy, a poor guy that came from a working class background that got into power and is hated by a lot of wealthy people. And there is also a level of racism there because Brazil has the thing that Latin America has. He's hated because he's directs attention to poor people. And a lot of people in Brazil don't like the people in specific big cities like Sao Paulo and Rio, don't like people from other parts of the country, the peasant class, to come in and better their lives. It's just a feeling they have. And I've seen this displayed throughout Latin America, but especially in countries where neoliberalism took hold. Somebody today told me, I must not know anything about South America because, Fujimori brought so much amazingness to Peru. And he revitalized the country and he did all this stuff. And how can I say that? Because what happened is his daughter took a picture with Agnes, his daughter. So the two daughters of dictators took pictures together, and they're all supportive because that's how it is in Latin America. These certain families rule and they have all this power and all this money. And it's just basically they become de facto neo-colonizers of the West. And so when somebody tells me, and that the Fujimorismo bettered Peru, when I'm from there and I see like still neoliberalism takes so much hold in these countries, and the hatred towards any sort of worker-led movement is just disdainful because their minds have been propagandized to hate anything remotely poor. And that's not just in Latin America, that's in North America too. Because if you think about it, it's the system that makes us think that every single person that's poor and every single person that's working class must be lazy or stupid, and there must be something wrong with them. So people don't want to be associated with anybody like that because they're afraid to be that. And it's a form of self-hatred, and it's a form of just like this thing where we have to change our entire mentality. We have to literally come from a different perspective, because otherwise we're still operating within that same paradigm. This idea that you have to be poor too to be worthy isn't valid either. It's the point is poverty has been used as a method of control by the people in power.
Absolutely. And I woke up, the day after the election. A lot of people were saying, "Oh my God, Bolsonaro's followers are all racist and all this and that." And I'm like, no, there's something more to it, because he got 53 million votes. Lula got 6.5 million more votes, but still, Bolsonaro got a lot of votes, so I just didn't want to kind of like push it off as him as this fringe character and whatnot. And I did realize that this was also, and I saw it, and that's why I keep questioning it. Why is there this split between the peasantry and the working class? Because it is definitely there, and we need to address it. There's a lot of serious issues going on, but that is one. I don't know how they keep them separated, but they do keep them separated. And it's something we need to take on in the future. We have to figure it out. We have to figure out, because these two groups, if the peasant class and the working class united, we can do anything, because it's the majority of the people. But it's the oldest trick in the book to keep people divided. And I saw that, and it was evident in Brazil. And I really am proud of the work we're doing too as well. I mean, look, I don't know as much about the region as Danny and Camilla, but that's why we bring them on. But the fact that we can go there and we can go and debunk this InfoWars video, because this InfoWars video, Vam, it's going to get more watches, more eyes on it than all three of the major networks together on anything they do on Brazil. And that's just the crux of things. That's why they've banned them. And nobody's going out there and counteracting this rhetoric right here. We don't have a leftist liberal point of view. And shame on them for not even talking about the truth and showing the poverty in Brazil, because that's what they want to stay away from. They don't want to talk about poverty. They never want to talk about poverty. And Brazil has it. Fiorello had a phone jack. Danny had a phone jack. But the fact that we can go out there, we can debunk these measures of a rigged election, because that's what they do, fam. They said the election is fugazi, it's false. They manufacture consent to get involved, and they start right there from that election. This election was not rigged. Are there vulnerabilities? Of course. We've never, ever endorsed DREs, but we went and asked. There's an open source system. There's a checks and balances. You can get if you're a Bolsonaro supporter, you can have a Bolsonaro supporter in every single vote center right there, and you guys can get the results yourself. So when they're being called in, and the way they were kind of like implying that there was a dump with ballots, there's no ballots. There's no ballots, you donkeys. I mean, seriously. So I'm very happy that we're able to do this work. And as long as these patriots let me talk to them, fam, I'm going to go in there and talk to them. I'm not going to bastardize them and just get mad at them because we have different ideologies. You know what I'm saying? I've always been attracted to Lula because of his work towards the poor, taking care of the poor. The people fell through the cracks. And we went to these people and they said, since Bolsonaro has been in power, they have been completely neglected. And that's why you see some banks and some big money going towards Lula's way, because they see so much social unrest. They don't want the place to blow. So they're going to say, you know what, we're going to go and put our money behind Lula because at least there'll be some stability. It's not because he's a globalist part of the plan trying to take over. That's a crock of shit.
And if Bolsonaro had any weight on his measures, Brazil has a system where he could have contested the results already, and he would have.
Same system he won on.
I mean, the second round, I hope some of us are there, but he will if he feels like that's a thing. But it's going to be difficult because there's so much transparency in terms of the open source that there's just no way. I mean, they could have easily caught something. And also, again, the trouble is going to start with Lula once he gets in, what he's going to do. Because Pedro Castillo, in my opinion, has been weak in Peru, right? Because he's let himself kind of be manipulated by the opinions about him. And he's had the entirety of Congress against him. And Lula faces the parliament of Brazil against him. So you have that's same system where it's going to be difficult for him to get anything done if there's going to be a lot of people of the opposite end there. And Brazil is an important country because it has so many natural rich resources. And, there's a sector of the left that is kind of completely just saying because the environmental and the climate change aspect is being exploited by, of course, the WEF, and it's being exploited by these people like Bill Gates and Soros. All of that is true. There's an exploitation using the climate movement, a Green New Deal and all that. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't care about the Amazon or that you shouldn't care about having trees and the environment. That where are you getting that's completely irrelevant? It's not irrelevant, and it's not cool, and it's not edgy to just be pushing this idea that destroying everything that we have is the way to go. No person that is serious is actually pushing that. Even people that have countries that rely heavily on oil, like Venezuela, and Iran and Russia, aren't necessarily going out there and saying, hey, let's burn everything and because we're going to say fuck you to the globalists. Nobody's saying that. You're just speaking from a place of nonsense and of not knowing what the hell you're talking about. And it's because it's attracting people and it's edgy to say these things. But when you don't go to these countries and you don't have the context to actually understand what you're talking about, it's very easy to just be like, oh, yes, all war is bad and all countries are equal or equally bad, or yes, or then take the other position where it's like, oh, yeah, you know, climate change is all fake. It's all, we don't have to care about the environment. It's all bullshit. Like it's just, it's not.
No nuance there. There's no nuance there. It's disgusting.
Because nuance isn't sexy, and nuance it needs more work to do actual nuance. It's so much easier to just pick a position and just say, okay, this is how it is. Like, get some nuance. Understand that these relationships in these countries require a lot of discussion, require complexities, oftentimes require going there or talking to people who have been there. Because believe it or not, being in another country and talking to the people on the ground matters. It really matters, and it changes your perspective than sitting on a chair and literally Googling something about the WEF and then just being like, oh yes, he has a picture. Oh, they're all globalists. Oh yeah. Oh my God. Look, I'm so based. I'm talking about how everybody is a sellout. Like, that's just lazy, and it's not journalism at all.
It's complex. And first of all, I think nuance is sexy. I do. So that's just me. I'm a little bit, different than the other kids in the block, but I think nuance is sexy. And secondly, let me tell you something. When you do go there, your perspective can change. I went there, fam, and I've never been a pro-Bolsonaro person, but with his whole stances on the boop, his whole stances on him coming out of bricks and Putin cracking him off some money for diesel gas. I'm like, wait a second, maybe there's something there to look at. Maybe these people are screaming and stuff. But when you go there and you see what's going on, you're like, wait a second, no. Hunger, people die of starvation more than they will ever die from any vaccine that's ever created ever. That's the problem we have to take care of. There are too many poor people there, and I understand why people are standing and supporting Lula. That doesn't mean I'm going to come out there and completely endorse him, but to tell you the truth, going out there and seeing what happens, it definitely solidified why the people are standing behind Lula. And here's the thing, too. The corrupt charges, they've all been acquitted. I don't give a damn what you can say. You could scream it from the top of the hills. We saw the telephone calls between Moro and the State Department and all these other groups, Moro and the other judge telling the judge to go against protocols. You got exposed. You got proven wrong. So you can scream it from the top of your lungs. You want to go out and win an election? Go out and win an election. You got three weeks left, but you ain't going to sit there and lie and try to manufacture consent for a military coup, because that's the thing I'm fucking seeing right now, is that they're trying to set the table to justify military action by making it look like Lula is Biden and Bolsonaro is Trump. Not happen. You've been exposed. We got you. Fam.
Got it, fam.
You can still go to the Give, Send, Go, by the way. Please go to GiveSendGo.com, the Convo Couch Brazil. Any way you can help it out, guys. This was on our dime, on your dime, because you guys put us on the ground. It was an amazing experience. And for us to be able to come back and go out there and kind of debunk InfoWars, you're putting fucking the Convo Couch in the arena that we need to be in, because we're going to push back and we're going to tell the truth. And you know us. If anybody's going to scrutinize an election, it's this outlet right here, the Convo Couch, fam.
We would have told you. We were a little iffy. We were like, oh, this is direct electronic voting machine. But then if you have an open source system, even though I agree with Potts, I still would like some paper trail, like how Venezuela does it. We didn't see anything, and we were there. And nobody, there were other observers there too. And, we directly spoke to the people in charge. Also, I just want to say right before we move on, people have been asking me what Lula's stance on the jobs is. He's anti-mandate, as far as I know. And
I talked to the person. He's pro-vaccine. He is pro-vaccine, guys, but he's anti-mandate. He's not going to mandate anything, but he is pro-vaccine. So, I mean, that is, and listen, if you're going to be that critical, like, I'm saying, then you better be as critical as Donald Trump. He's taking the Johnson & Johnson family on the goddamn stage. You did this, when his supporters are like, no, we didn't. You did this. This is for you. All of you beautiful people. And by the way, fam, one last thing to say about Brazil and Bolsonaro, because he's the guy we have to watch out for: China.
So moving on to, my now home country, fam. Russia.
Well, Koki Smurf was denied entry into NATO while we were gone. I just want to point that out because we were in Brazil when it happened. But please, yes, go right ahead.
So Koki Smurf, yes, he was denied entry into NATO for the sake of the world, right? Because you guys know that if Ukraine became a part of NATO, then that wouldn't just be Ukraine-Russia anymore, even though it's Ukraine, it's Russia-NATO, but it would really be NATO versus Russia, like full out. And that is one of Russia's lines. And again, they've crossed so many of Russia's lines, and Russia has been holding back. So Nobel Peace Prize nominee Volodymyr Zelensky has asked the West to bomb Russia while being nominated for a Global Peace Prize. So let's hear what he had to say in this video, because yeah.
Gotcha. I'm going to mute us up, guys. I ain't going to make that mistake again. Thank you. I know who that is. Oh, my Lord. We love you guys. Guys, remember, do us a favor. You can go over to Rockfin. You can hit the like. You can hit the share. They got some super rays coming in to help us out with this trip. You can always go to our givesendgo.com/the Convo Couch Brazil. We love you. Here's Vladimir Green Screen Zelensky asking for you know what.
Що повинна робити НАТО? Унеможливлювати застосування Росією ядерної зброї. Але, що важливо, я ще раз звертаюсь до міжнародної спільноти. Як це було до 24-го? Превентивні удари, щоб вони знали, що з ними буде, якщо вони застосують, а не навпаки. Чекати ядерних ударів Росію, щоб потім сказати, ах, ти так, ну ось тримай від нас. Переглянути застосування свого тиску. Ось я вважаю, що повинна робити НАТО. Переглянути порядок застосування. Що повинна
There is Koki Smurf talking about listen, like he read a book or something. First of all, he looks like a cokehead just right there. Look at that. Tell me that guy hasn't cut enough lines and just friggin', you know what I'm saying? This guy is a coke head that they put in as the head of a prison, an ex-comedian. But it's like he read a book. Oh my God, I read an article. I think we should preemptively nuke Russia. We should take that away from them, fam. We should allow them the opportunity to nuke us first. They're obviously going to do it. So, hey, West, why don't you start World War III and nuke them first? I read it in a book.
Right. So I just want to reiterate to the public, right? Because Zelensky, Ukraine has received billions of dollars, right? Okay. Flint, Michigan still doesn't have clean water. Jackson, Mississippi, we got shout out to Unholy Rome delivering water to Jackson, Mississippi, because guess who's not doing it? The government. The government doesn't give a damn. So what? Who cares? Oh yes, activists using mutual aid to get water to Jackson, Mississippi. Meanwhile, billions are going to this dude for his mansions and his wife and the photo shoots in Vogue. And of course, we have massive energy costs and inflation in Europe, right? We have an incoming famine. Every expert is telling us, hey, there's going to be a famine, especially in developing nations, in Africa, in the global south. Why? Oh, because the grain isn't getting to the poorest countries. It's going to the EU. And some members of the EU are using that grain to make some sort of gas fuel for their cars and for their homes, because they can't afford it. So this whole situation is because of the sanctions that, of course, NATO and Ukraine have wanted imposed on Russia, right? And now he wants to launch these preemptive strikes in order to eliminate the possibility of a nuclear strike, which makes zero sense whatsoever. And this guy isn't even in charge. He's just a puppet, guys. He's just a puppet. And this is NATO using this guy, because I don't believe for a second that Zelensky just begs and he gets what he wants. No. Let's be real here. This is NATO using Ukraine and Volodymyr Zelensky to wage war against Russia, especially because they're losing all their power, right? And in order to gain this power, they need to get rid of Russia and perhaps China. That's what we're seeing here. And I don't think they're going to do it. I think they're going to fail. And they might kill everybody in the process. So I really do think that Americans and Europeans should be out in the streets protesting. I see
into a wider horror.
Europeans protesting, but Americans I don't see. So here's Claire Daly, right?
Yeah, I'm sorry for stepping on your toes there for a second. I just wanted to say, yeah, at the end of the day, this clown is not even in charge. You know what I'm saying? And he's like, I think it was your boy Ken Klippenstein wrote an article for the Intercept the other day, trying to talk about like, oh, the intelligence community of America underestimated what Russia, how bad they really are, and now they need to take advantage of it. Like this dude, I don't think he's been in a fight in real life. He's trying to tell warmongers how they should fight a war against Russia. This is what we got right now. This is your mainstream media, ladies and gentlemen. And we did meet some Irish people, right, fam, in Sao Paulo. They were not really big fans of Claire and Mick. That's why we didn't toast with them. We just went on our way. Here's Claire. Check it out, guys.
The war in Ukraine is quickly escalating into a wider horror. And from what I can see, practically nobody in this chamber is doing anything to prevent it. In fact, most people seem to get off on the fact that it's escalating. And at this precise moment, of course, as usual, the voices challenging the rush to war are attacked and silenced, smeared as traitors, cronies, Putin puppets, Kremlin stooges, Russian agents. Frankly, it's pathetic. And I don't make the comparison lightly, but the crudeness and cynicism of these slurs coming from mainstream EU parties might as well have been written by Hermann Göring, who infamously said that even though people never want war, they can be brought to war with threats and smears. He said, all you have to do, tell them they're being attacked, denounce the pacifists for lack of patriotism and exposing their country to danger. It works the same every way. Where he led, you are following. This House should be ashamed of this debate. Words are being twisted, meaning subverted, and the truth turned on its head. Opposing the horrible madness of war is not anti-European. It's not anti-Ukrainian. It's not pro-Russian. It's common sense. The working class of Europe have nothing to gain from this war and everything to lose. And I find it laughable that those calling for arms to Ukraine never call for arms for the people of Palestine or for the people of Yemen. Unlike you, I oppose all war. I want it stopped. I make no apology for that, and I'm not going to be scapegoated and labelled for it either.
Fam. I want to marry Claire Danes. I want to marry her. I mean, she's amazing. Like, I love this woman. She is amazing. You know, and Mick and Claire have taken this kind of stance too about the anti-war across the board, that Russia too shouldn't even, you know, done what they did, but they haven't been that vocal about it, but they have taken that stance. And, you know, I disagree with that, but they're doing everything in their power right now to draw these parallels to see what's going on in these other countries. I loved it when she says, I don't see you guys calling for arms to the Palestinians. I don't see you calling for arms to the Yemenis. What the hell is up with you guys? I mean, fam, she's just fire. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, she's great. And I agree with you there. I mean, I definitely think like Russia didn't really have any other choice. And I really see this as more of a fight for their existence that they're trying to do. And in a way, they're fighting for the existence of the world into a different paradigm that's not a unilateral paradigm, right? And people are going to argue and say, well, Russia's imperialist and China's imperialist and all this. Sure, you can argue, you can make an argument, but guess what? They're not empires. They don't have the equity. You can't equate the two to the United States and what the United States has done, right? And I think there is that argument to be made, and people are going to have different takes on that. But the important thing that she said here is that it doesn't make you a Russian stooge or a Russian propagandist or anything to say we shouldn't be funding weapons to Ukraine. We shouldn't be sanctioning Russia. We shouldn't be doing any of this, because at the end of the day, this isn't going to benefit anybody, and especially the working people of the world. And I think that's an important point that she is making. You know who else?
Also, right here,
Mexican President AMLO, from Alex Rubinstein, reacts to EU members nominating Zelensky for the Peace Prize. How is one of the actors in the war conflict going to receive the Nobel Peace Prize? Believe it or not, common sense still prevails in many places outside of the United States and Europe. And that's because Alex is in Mexico. And of course, AMLO has been, really great on a lot of things now. And by the way, if they're nominating Zelensky, they might as well nominate Putin for a Nobel Peace Prize, but they never will, because it's just how one-sided this whole thing is.
Yep. Yeah, it is. And, AMLO too, fam, I think it's safe to say that out of the gate, AMLO was kind of dragging his feet, it seemed like. A lot of people were saying, come on, what's going on? But he had to assess the situation. He had to take on the IMF, and he waited. But it seems since he's won that referendum that he took to the people, and I think this is great. When you take a referendum to the people and you say, you decide if I should stay or if I go. If you say, if more than 50% of the people say that I'm not doing a good job, I'll call snap elections and we'll do it right now. But if you say I'm doing a good job, I'm going to continue on. And that was after 3 years, after half his term. So I really like what he's doing now, fam. And I think it's awesome. And I'm glad that Alex put that out there. You put a great tweet up here. This is from the New York Times. The U.S. believes Ukrainians were behind an assassination in Russia. And they're talking about Daria Dugina, right? Or is it Dugina? How do you say it? Daria Dugin? Fam?
Yeah, Daria Dugina.
Dugina. So, and you put, does anyone actually believe? Do you want to read it? Go ahead.
No, yeah, I mean, so basically they're making it sound like this is this is something new, right? First of all, everybody that's been looking at the situation from Moscow knew that this was Ukraine, that Ukraine was involved in this. However, let's not pretend that the American officials are, the biggest military and national security state apparatus is being fooled and outsmarted by Ukraine instead of the other way around, right? This is kind of like alluding to what I said about Zelensky asking and receiving all these things. Like, this isn't the United States. Oh, officials said that they didn't know that this was Ukraine, and now they're seeing, oh, this was Ukraine, that they had no idea. Do you think they had no idea, guys? Do you think that Zelensky and Ukraine, which wouldn't exist right now, Ukraine itself is a shell of a country at this moment, like they're basically sustained by NATO. Do you think that they wouldn't know, that the United States just wouldn't know that Ukraine did this? Like, I just don't buy that narrative. I definitely think the United States and NATO are leading in this. And I think they did know, and they did absolutely nothing to do anything about it. Now, some people may say they were behind it, maybe, but right now we can't prove that. You can only prove that Ukraine was involved. But, yeah.
I was just going to say, fam, I believe that, like I believe that the freaking Russians bombed their own pipeline that they could have just turned off from their own end, even though Joe Biden said they were going to stop at Victoria Nuland. I believe that, fam. I mean, yeah, how stupid do they think we are? Lord Bolton, fam, he's got something hot coming off. My new article's headline is clear. Putin must go. Now is the time for regime change in Russia. There is no long-term prospect for achieving America's critical, long-standing goal of peace and security in Europe without regime change in Russia, fam. It's always great to see John Bolton calling for peace. He's a man of peace, fam.
He just flat out just says regime change. We need regime change. That's it. And people go with it, right? So these people that are like, oh, no more war in Ukraine. The minute John Bolton goes, hey, we need to get rid of Putin. They're like, yeah, it's this whole mentality of like achieving America's critical longstanding goal of peace and security in Europe. So what does America have to do in Europe? And why does America have jurisdiction into what Russia wants? Do you see this? Get out of that mindset. America has zero jurisdiction in any of this stuff. And the fact it's just so ridiculous. They have no jurisdiction.
Well, what's really ridiculous to me, fam, is that they're actually calling for regime change in Russia, and they think that this is normal behavior. Like it's okay to say this stuff, like it's okay to push this stuff. If there was any type of justice whatsoever, John Bolton would be inside a cell, shackled for the rest of his life, not allowed to kill himself, and may live out a life of misery for the pain and the horror and the suffering that he's caused. But yet he gets to go on there with that tweak mustache and go out and spit game. And what does the mainstream media do? They keep putting this yo-yo on again and again and again. We need to get rid of these fugazi assholes, fam, and get real journalists like Vanessa Beeley.
Yes, and I just read a comment. Please have Professor Mohammed Marandi of Tehran on the.
Love to have him on. Would love to have him on.
We'll reach out to him. Just remember his name, Pasta, because I'm bad with names.
Mohammed Morandi. I know him right away. He's been on RT plenty of times. I used to see him on Crosstalk. He was on this Crosstalk episode, fam. They took on a Saudi diplomat, right? And they had Mohammed Morandi on. And the Saudi diplomat, right out of the gate, got so pissed off. He goes, "Why are we talking to him? He's a Persian. A Persian." And Mohammed Morandi was like, "Well, you know, what your guest just said over there was kind of racist. I'll let your audience decide that." But this episode went off on Crosstalk and it got hundreds of thousands of views. It was amazing. Mohammed Morandi, University of Tehran. Guys, tweet at him. Tell him, go on the convo couch. Go on the convo couch. And then we'll try to get in touch with him and get him on next week. I'd love to have Mohammed Morandi on. Vanessa Beeley, fam, came on the morning show the other day and she talked about elections. She got to meet Eva for a little bit in that referendum. But Vanessa was able to observe an election, a referendum. And what she said right out the gate gave me so much confidence that what we heard, what was reported by Wyatt Reed to be true, is that the Russians weren't involved. Because that's the way Western media is painting it. Like the Russians came in, they ran everything, they brought people by gunpoint. If you watch, Crystal and Sagar, they're reporting from wherever they got that. They brought people from gunpoint into the booth. I mean, the fact that they would even talk about that shit is beyond ridiculous. The people of the Donbas were running the elections. The Russians were just there for security, and that's all. So, and the people were running it fair. And then you know what she said? It got her heart, pumping the most, fam, that she just loved the public count. She heard the public count, and she said it just moved her. And I know what that's like. In Honduras, I started to cry when they were doing the public count. Something came over me. I'm like, this is transparency here. This is democracy. This is the people's sovereignty. This is what we need. You want to read Vanessa's tweet?
We don't have.
I know. It makes me cry. From the Daily Mail, we are hunting them down and shooting them like pigs. How Ukrainians are taking brutal revenge on the collaborators who've portrayed their neighbors and country to the Russians. And you have a picture of some of these people who have been tortured, beat up, and whatnot.
The people... oh, yes, you're right. Yeah, yes.
This guy blown up in a car, this guy in prison. It's turned traitor. We saw a little thing of this this one guy who was an older guy in Ukraine. I believe it was Kharkov. I don't know the region they left, fam, where he would just run the sports center for these athletes, and the Ukrainians, the SBU, called him a pig, they used the term faggot, told him to get in the car, and they took him away. We've already seen the taping to the polls and everything, fam. It's kind of disgusting. And it's shameful what the West is doing. The West is providing cover for this brutal shit and trying to put it on Putin, but they're not. You're being exposed, plain and simple, fam. Go ahead.
Yeah, and it's nothing new. The West has done this, especially the United States with Nazis. They protected Nazis for a long time. So it's no surprise on that note, right? Yeah. And I just wanted to also show that while this is still happening, while all of this is happening, while Nazis are getting awards, while they're protecting, the West is protecting them, and people are being killed. This is from Eva, who's still in the Donbas, and she said yesterday, entering Golmovsky, a village northeast of Gorlovka, targeted so heavily by Ukrainian shelling that people I met were reluctant to speak. They didn't want to stick around the town center longer than necessary and risk being shelled by Ukraine. So this is a video, and you can play it, fam, while we're there. I'm
gonna mute us though really quick first so you can hear it, guys. But thank you guys for everybody who's joined in, who supported our work. We're going over the part where Nobel Peace nominee Zelensky asked the West to bomb Russia. We're showing some of the great reporting on the ground for people like Vanessa Beeley and Eva Bartlett. This is the Convo Couch, ladies and gentlemen. If it's your first time watching, we have a lot of people watching on Rumble. When I say a lot of people, I mean 10. But thank you guys for the 10 people on Rumble watching. We're going to mute ourselves up and play this video from Eva Bartlett. Guys, you know what to do. Hit the like button. Hit the share button. We can't thank you enough. Thank you to all our moderators. You guys are amazing.
So he said, asking like, will you leave? And he said that he will not. Показать, что натворили, да? Вон, все, варвары, фашисты проклятые. Зимовать будем при пленке, стекол нет.
Fam, your thoughts on that? I mean, I'm so thankful to know Eva and Vanessa and the work they're doing on the ground. Your thoughts, fam? Go right ahead.
So this is a part of that's in the Donetsk region, right? And of course, it's still being shelled now. Again, this is a part where if this shelling continues, what is Russia going to do? That's been on the minds of people, right?
Oh yeah.
Russia going to respond? Russia has been doing a lot of intercepting of missiles to avoid this. But what she said about the city center, the town center, a lot of people stay away from that because that's what specifically Ukraine has been targeting. And of course, that's illegal because normally you're supposed to target just soldier, military weapon areas, and they're targeting civilians. So while again, people are still defending Ukraine and saying this is, they're both bad and all this stuff. It's like one side is literally murdering people, as we saw with Vanessa's tweet, for being, pro-Russian in any way that they see fit. The other side is also bombing civilian areas, houses, which, by the way, where I live in Moscow, the houses look extremely similar to that, except obviously newer and not torn down. And it's all set up from the Soviet era. So they're all very similar looking, and they look very nice and much nicer inside than on the outside. But they all have a very similar, like big window or balcony and all these units there, and then a playground at the center. It's very efficient. You can tell it's definitely from the Soviet era, though, because it's specific to that era. But it's kind of crazy seeing that these areas that look so much like parts of Moscow and parts of Russia just literally just be shelled. And I don't know. Again, just hearing the bombs in the background, right? When you're there, she's there. It's like, wow, like this is real, and she's there, and this is the kind of work that people are risking their lives to do, and of course being called all sorts of things and being put on kill lists and stuff. And so again, I hope to go to the Donbas as soon as I can. I mean, I'd have to do it on my own, but there's a lot of work going on at RT. There's a lot of things, obviously, where this whole war situation is going to need all of our attention. And I have I'm not going to not return. Like a lot of people are afraid that, oh, are you coming back? Like, because this is like the situation is escalating. I'm going back. I'm definitely going back. I'm definitely excited to go back and continue really following this closely and reporting on this and and seeing Eva. I can't wait to see Eva again. And I really commend her and everybody else that went and really saw these elections in the Donbas, because that's why these people voted to be a part of Russia, because they no longer want this to happen.
Guys, thank you so much for making this happen. Thank you for coming to the show today. You guys are awesome. You guys have been supporting us, putting us on the ground. And I can't wait for Fee to get over there too as well, because we did get some people coming at us trying to talk some guff. Fam, I want to talk about some super rays real quick while we're setting up the next section, because right now, the first one right off the bat, Aram. Thank you so much. Too good. Got to be good to be great. Stay great. Thank you so much. Pura vida. Pura vida. Thank you so much. Aram, you are amazing. We do appreciate all that Super Ray love that you always show us on the Convo Couch. Tim L, thank you so much for the Super Ray contribution. It is always appreciated on the couch, fam. I know you wanted to hear that. David Guvara, thank you so much. Your Super Ray contribution is always appreciated on the couch. And Crone of Heresy, thank you so much. I want to be Claire's bridesmaid then. You can. You will be invited to the wedding if she says yes. 62 people watching over on the Rockfin, guys. We have over a couple hundred 200. What do we have over there on the 220 watching on the YouTubes? We got 13 watching on the Rumble. Somebody said something. I'm going to check it out with the Rumble rants. I don't know what's going on. Someone is asking if you do Rumble rants like Rockfin does. We do, but I haven't seen it. I've yet to get a Rumble rant yet. So if you want to be the first Rumble ranter, be the first Rumble ranter. You got 19 people watching over there. They must have seen the title. They must start spreading it out since they heard about the Lula stuff. Guys, if you haven't heard about the Lula Bolsonaro stuff and you're over in Rumble, you want to go back and watch it. We'll have the show posted up after. We give a different perspective, and we're willing to talk to anybody who wants to listen about what is really going on in Brazil and our opinions. Why? We are the election scrutinizers out there. We scrutinize elections through and through. Yes, there are some things we don't like about it, but all in all, we stand by the system. We also talked about what was going on in Haiti, our intervention. Danny Shaw was here. Please go go find Danny, go look at his work. And we just finished up the section where Koki Smurf, that was denied entry to NATO, has now been asking the West to preemptively nuke Russia on his behalf because he read a book while he was getting low on his cocaine, and he said this might be a good tactic. He is asking to start World War III. So you guys know all the love, what you can do. You can also go over to the givesendgo.com/theconvocouchbrazil. We still have bills to pay. This trip was on us. We have no corporate sponsors. We only have you. And if you have a few extra bucks to spare, we will greatly appreciate it. Go to the givesendgo.com, theconvocouchbrazil, and we will get to the last section of the show. Fam, last section of the show was pretty much lit and on fire because Grandpa Joe out there has done something for us all. You want to start with this, fam, right here? Because this shit is funny.
So right away after Joe Biden announced this, a lot of people were like, oh my God, it's actually good. I'm going to praise Joe Biden, blah, blah, blah. He actually did a good thing. It's not a terrible thing. I will say it's not a bad thing. But I will break down as to why it's majorly a distraction. And it's not because I don't want to give Biden credit. It's because I'm smart enough to know that the Democratic Party's timing is always something you need to look at. And as to why they're doing this, and their record of following through things is very bad. So we saw with the student loan, right? They're kind of sending that back. They're taking steps back against that. We don't know what's going to happen with it yet. It's going back and forth. They're saying Republicans this and that, whatever. We know what this is about here. But of course, Biden said that he's pardoning all prior federal offenses of simple marijuana possession. There are thousands of people who were previously convicted of simple possession who may be denied employment, housing, or educational opportunities as a result. My pardon will remove this burden. Second, I'm calling on governors to pardon simple state marijuana possession offenses. Just as no one should be in a federal prison solely for possessing marijuana, no one should be in a local jail or state prison for that reason either. Third, we classify marijuana at the same level as heroin and more serious than fentanyl. It makes no sense. I'm asking Secretary Becerra and the Attorney General to initiate the process of reviewing how marijuana is scheduled under federal law. I'd also like to note that as federal and state regulations change, we still need important limitations on trafficking, marketing, and underage sales of marijuana. Blah, blah, blah. Sending people to jail for possessing marijuana has upended too many lives for conduct that is legal in many states. That's before you address the clear racial disparities around prosecution and conviction. Today, we begin to right these wrongs that Joe Biden helped put on the map to begin with, guys. Joe Biden's 1994 crime bill literally is the reason why a lot of this happened. Literally. I mean, it's a joke right now. Yes, if you want me to praise Joe Biden for beginning to maybe at least virtue signal his way into correcting a fraction of the things he led and started on. Okay, here's my praise. Thank you, Joe Biden, for beginning to make some inches on all the things you did.
No,
your crime bill.
No,
but
not at all. This is bullshit. He's encouraging governors and all this other bullshit to do whatever. There's nobody sitting in fucking prison for marijuana nationally, other than small little things. If they were in federal areas, like on, a submarine base, if they were part of the military, there's nobody sitting. It's all friggin' state. Okay. And any of the federal ones that are in jail for marijuana with 3 strikes, they still have 2 other strikes. So they're not eligible for this pardon anyways. This pardon is nothing but a smokescreen full of shit, hot air from Joe Biden. He has done nothing. Nothing.
And that's exactly what the AP says. And if you don't believe me, There's the AP article. I don't know if you want to put it up.
I'm going to pull it up right now for you, fam.
Yeah, because the AP article, literally directly from the White House had to admit, because you see what they put out is one thing and what is another. So if you just scroll down a little bit, I'll tell you when. Scroll down a little bit. There, see, blah, blah, blah. Oh, there it is. According to the White House, no one is currently in federal prison solely for simple possession of the drug, but the pardon could help thousands overcome obstacles to renting a home or finding a job. This is true. If you have a record that says, hey, you were, jailed, you served time for possession of marijuana, you have a felony, whatever, okay, it's going to take you out of the competition for jobs, right? But again, nobody is in jail for solely possessing for marijuana in a federal jail. So this is just a way where they're putting this out like this is going to release a lot of people from jail, but that's just not the case. It's just not. And
it says it right there, fam. According to the White House, no one is currently in federal prison solely for simple possession of the drug. According to the White House, no one, zero, no one, zero. I mean, how stupid do they think we friggin' are, guys? No one is sitting in jail simply for possession, and that's what the pardon says. It does nothing. And what do? They come out in virtual signal. This is about, equity, fam. It's always about equity. Even when they're hiring generals and stuff, we want to make sure we have a diverse cabinet full of warmongers and Raytheon lackeys, okay? We're going to have the most diversified group of people, and this is about helping people. This is about equity, fam. No one, not a single person is sitting in a jail for solely based on federally for marijuana. No one. Zero.
And so then you go to the macro of what the hell is happening to the micro and the macro. So on the micro level, right, this is happening right before the midterms, right? Okay. One.
I'm gonna get this up here, I'm sorry.
Yeah, after the OPEC also told the EU and the US to go scratch, like Pasta loves to say, they told them no Russian oil price caps, and they will reduce the oil production by 2 million BPD. And of course, we're going to play some of the videos from the Saudi, OPEC. But again, nobody is currently in prison for possession of marijuana only. So guys, you have to look at all these things. You can't just take what they give you, because most of the time it's some sort of bullshit. And
look at the way look what the AP, thousands pardoned, right? I mean, literally lying to you. Biden pardons thousands for simple possession of marijuana. No, he doesn't. Get the hell out of here. It's such a lie, fam. It's such a lie. I can't even deal with it sometimes. Like, it's just, oh my God, how stupid do I think you are?
This is a distraction as well. Not just from obviously the midterms. Democrats are doing terrible. People aren't happy with them. They're not happy with the Biden administration. But also, fam, the fact that the economy isn't doing well in general. And so then you have, of course, what's going on with the OPEC, and you have everything that's going on with the war, and you have a lot of ability for social unrest, right? You have a lot of people that are really not feeling it right now. And so here is also what the reaction from some of these members is, and it's kind of hilarious because they're calling out all of mainstream media, and they're skewed reporting on all of this. So let's hear what this Saudi energy gentleman had to say.
I'm going to mute us up, guys. You know the drill. Hit the like button, hit the share button. If you want to leave some love, you can always go to our Give, Send, Go or on Rockfin and leave some Ray token. Here's a Saudi diplomat speaking some words.
Unlike what CNBC sometimes or Bloomberg or Wall Street or FT call them OPEC cartel, it is not a cartel. It's a group of responsible producers try to conduct themselves for the betterment of creating an environment, an ecosystem where this industry can grow and prosper. Certainly the most fundamental component of that stability is to have a sustainable price level and certainly a sustainable growth level of supply and demand. If you do that with a reasonable amount of inventory, you're in there resolving a long-term issue, which should be our focus. The unfortunate part is that, and I'm sorry for taking some more time, but the notion that you are realistically you have to deal with every now and then a player here or a player there that says the following: allow me to play the game with you using my own rules and regulations and approaches, or otherwise I'm not playing and I'm not allowing you to play. So it makes it so bad that every now and then somebody will have to, without being demeaning, but those who are not a team player will have to learn how to be a team player and accept the rules of the game.
Fam,
I had to mute you because you unmuted yourself and you were echoing.
oh, I'm sorry. Jesus Christmas. Did you mute me though?
I did towards the end.
Look at you. Look at it's Fee's backing me up now. Go ahead, fam.
So yeah, you can just see how, he's pushing back against this narrative. Now, I'm not a fan of, obviously, the Saudi government or what they've done to the people of Yemen, and I'm not going to sit here and cheerlead for that. But when we're talking about the OPEC, this is just like the United States being mad that they're not doing their bidding, that they're telling them that they're telling the US, the EU, and NATO, F you. We're in this is a business, and we're not going to just do what you want us to do because you want to get at Russia. See, this isn't an ideological situation here. This is about economics. People aren't just going to sink their economies in the entire world for the benefit of the NATO. And that's what the United States and NATO are doing to the EU. They're sinking the entire economy of the entire continent. The euro is literally so weak right now. So many people are like, hey, I should go to Europe because I could really benefit right now. And of course, the energy crisis is increasingly just getting worse. And when a country takes a stance and says, hey, we don't want to sanction Russia, they whine and they moan and they say, no, you have to, blah, blah, blah. So this is just, again, you seeing the push away from the unilateral US and NATO alliance towards BRICS and OPEC and other alliances that are coming into fruition.
Yep. This next video that we're going to play is one of my favorites. I saw Wyatt did the other day. And like you said, we're no fans of the Saudi government over here, what they've done to Yemen, what they do to their own citizens. They got their own crazy shit going on over there. But, I don't know if this is theater or if this is real. But if this is some real stuff, fam, I mean, the United States government is starting to look like a bunch of clowns. This is a diplomat from Saudi Arabia telling Reuters to go scratch. I'm going to mute us up and then play us on through, guys. Keep an eye on.
Alex Lula from Reuters news agency. I had two questions.
No, Alex, I have to talk to you about. So you have got it wrong.
Okay.
And you have got it wrong twice.
Before I ask the question,
and you will get it the third time if you did, as Reuters did not do a proper job. You talked about Russia doing this and that. And actually, the day that your story came out, no one from Russia talked to me, nor I talked to anybody from Russia. You repeated that again with another tale of a story prior to that Saudi and Russia, blah, 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 are congregating around $100 price. That is not true. And I spent 20 minutes from one of your respected members of your bureau in Dubai, explaining to her or actually 25 minutes, why we don't go as Saudi Arabia for price targeting. And that 25 minutes went in vain, and I really don't like that. I acted in a very respectful way, emanating from respecting the agency, and I think, but you elected to choose a phantom Saudi source. Sourcey sauce, if I can do it as British as I could. But if you have questions, direct it to others, but not me. I'm not talking to Reuters until you respect the source, which is the energy minister on behalf of the Saudi government.
Okay, thank you. I won't ask.
So you ask the questions to any of my colleagues.
Fam,
Bam.
when the Saudi government tells you that you're a Fugazi newspaper, you might have some serious problems, fam. He's telling Reuters, I'm not even talking to you. That's translating from what Donald Trump would say. He would say fake news. That's what the Saudi diplomat is telling the government, is telling the Reuters reporter. Go ahead, fam.
No, I mean, I agree. It's just it's funny watching this happen in real time, and I don't think this is I don't think this is theater. I mean, I think this is real. I think the United States is going there with this bravado still that we, we're dominating everything, at least in public, right? Everything's fine. We're still, Biden. I don't know if you have it. I didn't put it in there. Biden's like, no one fucks with Biden, right? He's like this whole idea. And the memes came like, except the OPEC, Saudi Arabian diplomats. Like, so it's just this whole thing. They're pretending that this is all the same. And here's, by the way, is our favorite guy, Tony Blinken. And he was in Peru for a meeting. That's why you see the Peruvian flag in the background. That's why it's there. But here's his response to
I love the
OPEC
tweet. Are they gonna sanction OPEC too? Fucking losers. Guys, Convo Couch finishing up on the show. We'll see you in a little bit. We're going to play a little Anthony Blinken.
We see the decision as both disappointing and short-sighted. As to the relationship going forward, we're reviewing a number of response options. We're consulting closely with Congress. We will not do anything that would infringe on our interests. That's first and foremost what will guide us, and we will keep all of those interests in mind and consult closely with all of the relevant stakeholders as we decide on any steps going forward.
So always the cold, always the cold guy, right? He's always cold and just very like stoic, but the situation is not going well for the U.S. Bam?
What more can we say? This is a fucking joke. How did all these people get back into power? What is wrong with Americans when they can see the Victoria Nulands and the Jeffrey Pyetts and the Anthony Blinkens and the Lloyd Austin Greens and all these other jerk-offs who were warmongers before that failed under Obama, who led Libya into a failed state that now has a slave trade, that has allowed the American troops to go in and steal all of Syria's resources while Israel bombs them on a regular basis, while they cooed in Honduras and removed Manuel Zelaya. How could they allow these people to go back in there and not jump up every day, jump up and down with their feet stomping every day? How can you sit there and with a straight face and say you're mitigating damage by putting this pieces of shit back in the office? This is just some of the worst people in the world. And they go on with this whole freaking carousel. There's a whole video, fam. I don't know what it is. And Donald Trump liked to do the same thing. We're making America great again. We're going back. Like, first of all, dude, America needs to look in the goddamn mirror. Okay, America needs to stop being so damn imperialist. It's not America's people; it's America's government, and it's time for America's people to hold their government accountable and stop being scared and divided and separated. I mean, this is just a joke. Anthony Blinken is a goddamn joke. These guys deserve to be in prison for life. never let out to see the sunshine ever. They deserve to be in prison, not given top jobs as part of our government and being involved in the planning of what's going to happen and running the world. It's disgusting. They're murderers, fam.
And speaking of that, fam, I do have to give a shout out tomorrow. We didn't get a chance to have her on with our traveling, but I do have to give a shout out to Misty Winston and everybody that's going to be at the Assange event tomorrow in Washington, D.C. I'm trying to find their flyer here.
Find their flyer. We can get it up. Guys, thank you for everybody who joined in today. There is an event tomorrow. Misty Winston will be there. I was supposed to talk at this one thing in this cryptocurrency thing, fam, but I'm not talking at it anymore. Unfortunately, they scrapped the panel I was supposed to go on. But yeah, guys, do us a favor. Get on. Go check out Misty stuff, fam. You got it there? Did you put it in the flyer? Did you put it in the
Yeah, the picture, I believe. Hold on, I'm putting the picture in there. Oh, it's not working. Hold on. There we go. It's a picture, and there it is.
It's in the bottom.
Very bottom. Very bottom.
That's InfoWars. Yeah, you getting the right one?
Fam, it's a picture in the very bottom. Just refresh.
Okay, let me refresh it and stuff. You're gonna have to spitball. Riff is what the fam. Can you riff? It's not there. Oh, there it is. Here it is. Fam, riff. You're not riffing. You need to riff.
You keep interrupting me, so otherwise I would be talking. If you weren't interrupting me every 5 seconds to tell me to talk, I would be talking. Jesus Christ on a stick. Oh my God.
Fam, you're not riffing. I need you to riff, fam.
Guys, I don't know what to say. I'm just so irritated with the way things are being covered a lot on independent media, and the way there's no nuance. I have to reiterate that, and how people just want certain things to be said. So here's the event. Hands off Assange, 12 p.m. to 3 p.m. Eastern Time, DC time, right in front of the U.S. Department of Justice, 950 Pennsylvania Avenue, Northwest. And there you go tomorrow.
With Ben Cohen,
October 8th.
Brandy Credico, David McCann,
Stephen Donziger,
Kevin Gustola,
Chip Givens,
Chris Hedges,
John Kiriakou,
Joe Laria,
Garland Nixon,
and many more.
Including Sabby Sabs,
and many more.
And a bunch of people that are going to be there.
Jason Burmis will be there.
Oh, he will?
Jason Burmis is going to make it. He was on Timcast the other day, so he went out to the studios. So now he's there. So he's going to be making an appearance. He was on Tim Pool.
This is the biggest one we've had. We've seen. I would be there. We would have been part of the process had I been in the States and not been in Brazil and all this other stuff. I mean, I am in the States, but I can't make it. I can't take that many trips, guys. I would die.
The last trip alone is just almost like friggin' destroyed us. But I can't thank you guys enough for really helping us out and put us on the ground. You guys did an amazing job of doing so. Let's go over to the Rumble, fam. We have a Rumble rant, fam. Would you like to hear the Rumble rant? Oh, and I think I know who it is. And I would like you to give your opinion on this because it's libertarian socialism, right? Libertarian socialist. So we know who it is. Let me put it up. 1 second.
Yep.
All right, fam. I don't know what they're doing here, but they're doing something. They're like moving stuff. Where I'm at, they're like moving shit right now. I'm like, what the hell is going on? Oh my God, they're moving shit. All right, fam. The question is, I'm gonna read it because I can't get it up. I'm so sorry. It says, "What's Convo's thoughts on Petro meeting with Alex Soros?" That's a red flag for me, to be honest. It's from Libertarian Socialist. My friend, DC, what's going on? Libertarian Socialist fam, you got an opinion on that?
I kind of addressed it already.
Yeah.
I can address it again, but I pretty much addressed it already.
pretty much you have to meet with a lot of these people. You need to get access to power. Secondly, when you're in a lot of these countries, Petro's in a situation where there's already the devil sitting inside the room. The place is infested with NGOs. The Clinton Foundation is there. So if you want to get along, you got to go along and to a point where you can eventually then make moves. So what Petro has to do is he has to eventually sit down with the devil at his table, because the devil's already in his house. And he has to very carefully maneuver throughout the landmines that are going on. Same thing with Xiomara Castro. You can't just go in there and say, I'm going to nationalize everything, I'm going to turn everything. They'll cool your ass. They'll kill your ass. So the United States and the Western empires understand that they have to compromise too, that if they allow too many of their radical, crazy, right-wing, capitalist nut jobs run the place is going to turn to social unrest, and the people are going to uprise and beat back the government. This is what happened in Iran when we supported the Shah. This is what happened in Venezuela. This is what happened in Nicaragua. This is what happened in Cuba with Batista. You can, the CIA can't overplay their cards. They can't just do exactly what they want. They have to play the situation for what it is. They settled with Petro because Petro wasn't going to touch their gravy train of drugs. CIA, he's going to decriminalize drugs instead of fighting over that. And he was a compromise with the Colombian people because they thought he would end the civil war, open up the border with Venezuela, and start trade organizations and stuff. So he was a compromise altogether. But, ladies and gentlemen, there's a picture of me in AOC. Does that mean I'm an AOC hack now? Does that mean I'm an AOC fan because I once was there? You can't take a picture and say, because of this picture, that person is now a globalist, in it for the Soroses and in it for...
But that's what people are doing. And that's what that's literally lazy. It's not journalism. It's not even good analysis at all. It's literally just like, oh, I saw this person in a picture with so-and-so. Like, literally nobody's paying me to say this. I'm like the same person I was before working for RT. So I don't even want to hear people coming up with, oh, now that Furiel is working for RT, she's blah, blah, blah. No, I don't even agree that you have to go along to get along. I don't even say that. But what I do say is that these people are politicians and diplomats and people in power. They have to meet with their enemies. They're going to meet with people they don't like. They're not going to know sometimes who these people are or what they do. Guys, these people that are in power sometimes are not as wise as you think they are. When you're outside of the system, a lot of these people, the things we know, they don't even know. All of the things that we know probably more than Congress knows. And this is what you have to understand. A lot of these people do not have the time to go over all the stuff like we do. They're busy in a different world making all this legislation. And so when you have somebody like a Petro, especially from a Latin American country that literally Colombia is a NATO partner to the United States, the only NATO partner, you're going to have them meet with people, whatever. If Petro then goes and says, hey, we're going to go and join Klaus Schwab and start saying all this rhetoric that blah, 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 they're going to be part of Klaus Schwab, then yes, you're going to hear me criticize Petro. Never once did we ever say Petro is an anti-imperialist. Did we ever say Petro is anything but a chance for Colombia to get back on their feet after decades and decades of civil war and U.S.-backed regime changes? That is what we said, and that is what we're standing against. This idea that Latin America is all bought and paid for by the World Economic Forum is very, in my opinion, a very colonialist mindset, again, coming from the other side, where you think that what you think is best is what's going to be what these people should get. And again, you don't get to decide. I don't get to decide. The people of these countries get to decide. Same with Russia. Same with Ukraine. The people of these countries get to decide. If they choose a government that isn't going to work for them, that's up to them. It is not mine or yours or anybody else. This is freaking like you have no jurisdiction to go into these places and decide what is better for them. That is very, very much a colonialist mindset that we're trying to get away from. We're trying to get away from the Monroe Doctrine. We're trying to get away from this idea that we're going to dictate what we think. If the people of Russia want Vladimir Putin, if the people of China want Xi Jinping, if the people of the United States want better elections, they're going to fight for them. We don't have fair elections in the United States. So nobody here in the United States can tell me and say, oh, this person's corrupt, that person's corrupt. We live in the fucking heart of the empire. We have the most corrupt people in power. We are the ones, these politicians are the ones doing damage. Why the fuck can't people focus on their house first instead of how corrupt everybody else is? Colombians will deal with it. Colombians will deal with it. We can talk about it when it happens, if it happens, and we can have our criticism of Petro, we can have our criticism of Castillo and all these people. But guess what? Those people are far better than anybody in the United States has elected. Literally, we have no place to talk.
Yeah, it seems very one-sided when you're hearing these opinions, and you can give your opinions all you want, but it's lacking any type of nuance whatsoever. When you don't look at the whole picture for what it is, when you go down to Brazil and you get to see the whole picture, you think differently. Now, fam, in the beginning of the show, I told Bolsonaro people, Bolsonaritas, whatever you call them, that instead of bitching and saying that it was unfair and stop making shit up, go out and win an election. You got 3 weeks to win an election. Well, fam, reporting Kasachwan News, Camilla says, Lula reiterated that he's against abortion again this morning. That's an answer I've already given. I'm against abortion. I'm against abortion. I'm a father of 5 children. I'm a grandfather of 8 children. I'm a great-grandfather of a great-granddaughter. And she goes on to talk about this. She says they're going hard for the Christian vote and the evangelicals in particular, the huge percentage of a population. So what they're trying to do is they're trying to smear, obviously Lula as a communist, saying he's against abortion. I mean, he's for abortion. Now, obviously, I know some people out there are like, oh, he's against abortion. That's awful. Once again, this is another country, very Christian. It's not our country. Whether we agree on abortion or not, we should respect what they want.
Right.
And if the people of Brazil are not ready for abortion, then we need to respect it. It is not the role of the president of the republic. This is the role of the legislative power. And above all, it is the role that is very much up to us to understand that the woman has supremacy over her body, a Lula official said. Brazil, like most of Latin America, is split on abortion. But for a presidential candidate to speak before the press with confetti and horns in support of women's access to safe abortions and related services in a country evangelicals might be political suicide. So,
yeah,
family,
and this is what you know if you go to Brazil, like Camilla has done, and you understand that this is a conservative country when it comes to social issues. How many times have we talked about this with Nicaragua and Honduras and Colombia and literally everywhere in the global south, that people there are conservative? Oh, remember Castillo? Oh, he's not there on marijuana, LGBTQ issues, not there. Yeah, none of them are, guys. They're not. Cuba is the furthest along with the new family code that they voted for via a referendum, which to me, I agree with Pasta, is one of the most democratic ways you can vote for something. And that's it. That for me, I align with Cuba the most. Why? Well, because I'm more liberal or leftist on these social issues. But am I going to be like, oh no, screw Lula now because he's some right-wing conservative with his on abortion issues? No, I'm going to say, well, that's his position, and perhaps that's the position of many Brazilians because that's where they're at. And I'm not going to sit there and point as to how they need to evolve because they're this and that and how they're so just. I'm going to allow them to exert their own sovereignty because that's what we should do, especially coming from the country that has destroyed any notion of democracy for our own people in the United States and has done it so for the rest of the world as well.
Yeah, fam, we had a little visitor the other day. I don't know if you know about this, but the Banks sisters came to town, fam, and it was really fun. Courtney Banks put some stuff up. Big thank you to Slow News Day and Yo Pasta for having me and her sister on, Keisha, on this week. It was a blast. Brett Ernst was hilarious, and that food was bomb. Vegas kicked my ass, but it was so great. So glad we got to meet it. Check it out on AM Week up on the Rockfin. There it is. Courtney is hanging out. You can see with us, fam, right there. Courtney Banks.
Yeah, your face is worrisome. You look too happy.
We were laughing, fam. We were going to see a comedy show, and you could see Steve there with the blizzy right there, man. It was awesome. I hope they behaved and treated the lady well. Otherwise, let me know because you don't want fam regulating. Fam will regulate.
Yeah, I'm going to be the U.S. umpire when it comes to that. I say, hey, you better be treating my peeps right or else
okay.
I'm going to invade.
Yeah. Lucky Burrito, you're going to get the last word of the day. She says, great show today. And Lucky has even observed, Lula with the pictures with Klaus Schwab and whatnot, but she says it all the time. At the end of the day, the Brazilian people deserve to pick who the Brazilian people want. So you can have criticisms, fair criticisms, and say, hey, listen, this is the way I feel. Yeah, I can say when it comes to the vaccine, I'm not crazy about it, but this is up for the Brazilian people. And this is for the Brazilian people to decide, and that should be the most important thing. So thank you, Lucky, for standing in that position, even though you were skeptical, because, you know, I was skeptical too as well. But then when you go down, you see what's going on. You understand for real what's going on. People are starving there. There is social unrest. You understand why a lot of money has gone Lula's way. They don't want the place to blow. So even though you have Donnie Small Hands going, Bolsonaro is a great president. He's put you on the map, fam. And there's many things you can do. You can go out today as Brazilians and vote for this beautiful, beautiful, beautiful man. And remember, at the end of the day, China, that's the problem.
And with that, guys, thanks so much for your support. Thanks so much for watching. And we'll see you next time.
We do love you guys. We'll see you next week. We have some great guests in store for you. Thank you for helping out the Convo Couch. See you later.